pardon the bad lighting with this Airbnb light. This is the only light that's in this entire room. I've got my kombucha. I just finished the 2.5-hour Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and I had to rush upstairs because I wanted to talk about it. Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, by Mary Shelley, of course, was in 3 parts when it was originally published. I tend to like it better than Dracula. Actually, I've read Dracula many times. I've read Frankenstein a few times. Frankenstein, for me, was always a love because it was actually the first theater production show that I ever watched. I think I watched that in the 8th grade. We went to a college to see that. So I've always been a fan of Frankenstein. Dracula too, but and I ken these two together for, I'm not sure, whatever reason, but Mary Shelley, to me, was and is the reason I feel like that every other female author who writes horror got into writing horror. I don't know that I believe it's a horror novel at all. I think it's a love story. And Guillermo del Toro did this so excellently. I think that's a word. I will tell you, this is probably the closest retelling from scene to scene as the original book. Again, the original book was in 3 parts. You see the movie in 3 parts. The setup is the same. The flow is the same. I will say there's only, and I won't do any spoilers on here, opening the kombucha, but there's only a couple of nuances, let's say, that Guillermo decided to play them out in a different fashion. I think maybe his intention was to show more of a redeeming quality to the monster, and for us to see Victor as the enemy, the protagonist. While the book does read like that, I feel like you still come away sympathizing for Victor and his upbringing and what drove him to this, and seeing the monster as the enemy. But this was so well done. I thought when I saw the runtime that it was going to be something that was going to be a pause and start and pause and start, and it wasn't. It held me. It held me. The way that the prelude, the first part, was set up was just fantastic. And the actors that were in this, I love Oscar Isaacs. Oscar Isaacs, I've been a fan of his for many years. He's in all my favorite series. I think he first came on my scene with Ex Machina, and then of course he was Poe Dameron in the Star Wars series. Of course he is Duke Leto Atreides in the Dune series. So I've really always enjoyed what he has been in. But you've got Charles Dance in this, who plays his father of young Victor. You have Christoph Waltz that's in this. You have Mia Goth that's in this. Am I forgetting anyone that I really enjoy watching? I'm trying to think. I think those are the major players, although if you go back to part 3 is the monster's story, if you will. Of course, he goes and kind of hides out in this family's home, and he eventually makes friends with this blind father figure, if you will. That was played, and I'm sorry I forgot his name, but the actor who played Argus Filch on the Harry Potter series, he also played, oh my gosh, I forgot his, it's late at night, in Game of Thrones. Anyway, the Red Wedding. So I thought that was really cool to see those actors that I enjoy watching. The scenes, the Gothic Victorian retelling was extremely appropriate. little nudges. Guillermo does a great job of you sympathizing with the perceived monster, if you will. I'm thinking about Pan's Labyrinth. And he did a great job here. Even though this was done by an actor, and the actor was 6'5", by the way, the camera angles were amazing. The way that he shot this was so smart that it just made the movie flow that much better. And it made you focus on little things, not big overt details. So the camera angles were superb. And the way that they shot this, he could have been 8 feet tall at some times, and he could have been the same height as Victor at other times. Being a medical nerd and a science nerd, the first and second part, because the first part's a prelude, second part is Victor's story, kind of his origin story, if you will. And then the monster's third part kind of picks up where Victor's leaves off. That they do an excellent job of as well. I don't know who the consultant was, but it flowed. It's true. The anatomy was correct. The thought and the science behind how Victor would get to A to B, and how he would recreate life, was very, I would say very plausible, but it was certainly plausible in the sense of, okay, this is how anatomy works, and if there were, if we didn't have cells that die off and we could regenerate them by energy, then okay, the laws of energy say that this might be able to work. Again, I've seen many, many different versions of Frankenstein, all the way back to Lon Chaney doing it. But this one, I think, might be my all-time favorite, because there was a really nice back and forth. There was a really nice balance of seeing Victor's side and his slide into madness, and then the monster's side. Again, this was different than the book. The monster is attempting, and this is the major portrayals, I think, in at least the later century, is that we're supposed to sympathize with the monster, and it leaned a little bit that way. But otherwise, it was a perfect film. Stellar acting. Julie kept asking me, why are we not seeing this in the big, the IMAX screen? And I know it was a limited release. And when we found out it was coming out, Julie's like, I have to see that for the costumes. I have to see that. Even though she was homeschooled, she did read it as a teenager. For me, it was a signed reading when I was in public school, but she wanted to see it for the costumes, and I said, absolutely. Again, it's Frankenstein and it's Oscar, so I will watch it. Then we found out that it was going to come to Netflix, but after Halloween, wasn't coming to the theater anywhere near us, and Julie kind of lost interest. Again, because of the Halloween, you're going to throw it to November, I think November 7th, so yes, this is a week late, because I had to convince her. I had to convince her that she needed to see this because I had been reading the reviews. Completely agree. Maybe even more so with the reviews, because I could turn around and watch this immediately over, and the 2.5 hours would just fly by. So loved the movie. Very close to a 5. The knocks, I think, because I don't believe any of it was stilted. I don't believe any of it lagged. I don't believe that the 2.5 hours that you ever really look at your watch and say, what's going on? The only reason why it might not be a perfect film is simply because it doesn't follow the book 100%. Guillermo took a little bit of a, not necessarily a twist, he just set things up in a different order, and some things that were in the book that were not known but assumed are known in the movie, and then we switched just a couple of things. Of course, the love interest is Elizabeth, and in this one she kind of falls for the monster in a sympathetic way. That's different. That's different in the book. And again, I won't spoil it because you should absolutely read the book. So that's why it might get, I don't know, a half a point shaved off. But the music was great. I loved that the music was a little whimsical. While it was still gothic, it led us into the scenes not as a back and forth of a he said, she said, or this guy is good and this guy is evil. The music I thought was extremely neutral and whimsical at times. When Victor Frankenstein is kind of fallen into madness, the music is almost childlike. It almost sounds like nursery rhymes. It's really interesting, the choices that he made and how the score was created. And I've not read anything about that, but that was a real creative way to kind of tell us that, you know, these things are happening and it's not as serious, because for Victor, or for the monster, it makes sense to them, type of a thing. Again, little things like Victor always has something red on, whether it's a scarf or he seems to always wear these red leather gloves. There's always something that is red on him. So little nods to his love of anatomy, his father kind of really honing in on him at an early age. His father was a surgeon to learn these things, and he decides he wants to conquer death from the death of his mother. And so that's essentially the baseline of the story. But anyway, I won't ramble. You have to do yourself a favor and watch this if you have Netflix. It is spectacular. It is not a horror movie. I just told you I thought it was a love story. That's how I saw this film today. And will, you know, watch it again. And if I watch it again, maybe I come away with a different vantage point and a different opinion. But for the time being, this was great. The monster was great. At times, the way he moved. Julie asked me twice. She's like, "Are you sure this is not computer generated?" I was like, no, this is not AI. Now, I don't know if they went back in post and kind of changed things, but it is the actor. That is an actor. That's a real actor. And his movements were great. I don't know if he knows ballet, if he is a trained dancer or a theatrical actor, but he moved so gracefully and you believed he was the monster. So, fantastic. Cannot ding anything except for the source material was altered like 0.5%. So I'm going to ding it 0.5%. That's the only thing I'm dinging it on. And that it wasn't in theater near me where I could watch it in the IMAX with surround sound and all the other jazz. Is there anything else? I think that may be it. Fantastic. Fantastic movie. You have to see it, and I would love to know your opinion of it. I thought it was so creative. I've never seen a more romantic version and telling of Shelley's original story. And it was superb. Alright, I'm done. I won't bore you any longer. Thank you if you joined me to watch this impromptu little review, but I finished it and I thought I have to go upstairs and put this on film while it's still fresh in my mind, because if one person sees this and wasn't thinking about seeing Frankenstein and now they should or want to, absolutely you should. You should do yourself a favor and watch that, even if it means breaking it up into pieces. And then if you want the masterpiece, go and get the book. Get the book off of Kindle. I think it's 99 cents on Kindle. So anyway, have a great night, guys. I'll see you again tomorrow morning on our daily vlog. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Good night.